Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Driven Hunter Podcast, brought to you by Mission Crossbows. And this week, we have a very special guest.
You better say that.
My lovely wife, Nicole. And we're going to be talking a lot about her, and hopefully she does not give you any dirt on old Patrick.
That's right. Hopefully we don't bicker too much, right?
Well, if people want to really see the inside story, maybe we'll show them a little bit of that. But we've had a lot of fun.
And we have. You're right. You know what? And I'm happy to be on here. I think this is really cool. When we first started talking about doing podcasts, we both said, what better way for people to kind of hear our backstory and insights behind Driven and bring the viewers, listeners, all of our fans, everyone in to be able to kind of see behind the scenes of Driven and kind of maybe our day-to-day how-tos, our beyond what we do on our 30-minute television show.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to give them a little more insight,
Yep.
a little more, educational things that are cool.
Yep.
And, of course, they'll get dirt on both you and me.
That's right.
But
and some pretty cool guests, too,
Right.
I mean, so
we
that's
have lots. Yeah, we've made a lot of friends over the years, and we'll pull some of them in as guests. So, Driven, it's been a heck of a ride.
It
so
has
far.
been. Yeah. What year did you start it?
I started in 2004. My back history was I was a hunting guide over in Buffalo County. Eventually followed my passion of film and video into, a professional world and worked for Hunter Specialties
Yep.
for quite a few years, 6 or 7 years to be exact. And then went on to produce North American Whitetail television series and started that. And actually, that's where I met you. We'll talk about that
That's
in just
right.
a little bit. The old flag girl. And then in 2004, decided to make the leap of faith, jump into uncharted waters,
Absolutely.
and learn to swim in a big ocean. And
I think that's where a lot of people don't understand, though. I mean, you going from North American Whitetail to Driven and the hardships you had to endure and where you started. I mean, and I give him a lot of props. You don't scratch your own back on that per se, because you did. You started with nothing from ground zero. And we'll talk a little bit more about how you started, but it's pretty amazing from 2007 to now sitting here at this table and talking about
That's amazing.
how many years. And you're really starting to age yourself, honey. Yeah.
So I got a few gray whiskers.
About how many years
Most
that
of
you've
them
been
are
in the
caused by
industry.
her.
But really, essentially, I always say he is kind of a grandpa in the industry because you've been in it for so long.
Right. Yeah. Time flies.
It does.
It really does. And you know what? The best part of what we do, and not to sound selfish, because I know there's a lot of people that work very hard in their
Absolutely.
career field, but we're just blessed to do what we do and always have been blessed. I don't know if it's Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday. I certainly don't live for Friday like a lot of people. So, you're doing something right, and you're in the right profession when you don't care what day it is. And that
Absolutely.
Lord's blessed us for sure. And it started, you mentioned our backstory. It started in 2004 when I, started Driven series. I wanted to name the series something that best represented myself
Yep.
and what I was about. And, I know, when it comes to film and producing and just hunting in general, I know that I'm a very driven person. I learned that from my parents, and it's just my makeup.
And me as well, right? I mean, we were both
Right.
born and raised with not everything given to us, handed to us. We had to work for what we had. And, we both saw our parents growing up working hard and working for what they had. And I think that goes to show, that goes to say something, especially nowadays with kids and our next generation. I think it's pretty awesome. So,
Right. That's true. And that's what we're teaching and instilling the values
absolutely.
to our kids. And we'll talk a lot about kids here just coming up. But, after 2004, you're right. There was a lot of hardship. I remember when I first started, I went and borrowed $7,000 from the bank, my local banker. And she said, no, let me get this right. You're self-employed now. You don't have a job, and I'm going to borrow you money. And I said, well, I need it to buy a used camera to get started. And that camera now adorns the top of our trophy case up in our production office. I'll never sell it because it has sentimental value.
Absolutely.
But that's what really got me kicked off and got me rolling. And, that year, of course, I had a lot of the pressures of producing and trying to harvest things on camera just to get shows. And it wasn't going very good at first. It was going terrible. Matter of fact, I wanted to pretty much harvest, I was doing a 13-run series back then, and I wanted to harvest at least one mature deer per show. That's 13 big whitetails. And in second week in November, I had only shot one whitetail for the show, and I was figuring this was going to be, instead of a
pretty
deer,
tough. Yeah.
it's going to be a turkey hunting show across the boards and rabbit hunting. But on November 14th, it really, God sent me one, and my career deer walked in when I was sitting in a stand in Illinois at 9:30 in the morning, and I shot a 200-inch typical. And that, I wouldn't say one deer makes or breaks your career, but that deer gave me that boost that it took to actually get me more motivated and make me work harder, and everything just fell in place after that. I was still driving a $400 beater that had no brakes, and I had to e-brake everywhere I went.
That's the
but I was
funniest
enjoying
story.
it. I hauled that 200-incher home with a lot of pride, and I had my hand on it all the way back from Illinois, just to keep it safe. But that was the essence, and I had other great people behind me that were helping support me.
Did.
Team members that had always been with me, like Dennis Williams, Mark Wimpy, Steve Snow, Chad Nolte. There was so many, Donnie Hansen. There was so many people that ran the camera in past series for me that now would help me put together, additional kills if I needed it. And that's what it took. And, I'm still, good friends with all those guys. And sometimes they still help out. But, spinning that record forward in 2007, we started dating, but I knew you before then. And
yes,
of course I would do myself injustice and everybody that's watching and listening if I didn't tell them a little bit of that backstory, because we met when I was producing North American Whitetail, and I needed a cameo from I told a couple guys that I knew that I needed a cameo from a good looking girl that would be a Daisy Dukes girl. And this guy, I was in Texas at the time discussing this, and this guy said, "I got your girl." And I'm like, I was thinking maybe one of my local cameraman's girlfriends or something. But he said, "No, this girl, she's the real deal. She's a hunter. She's from Illinois. And I'll talk to her. I bet you she'd do it." And, long story short, I met you that year at the ATA show. And you said you would do it. And you came up and, were a cameo on the opener. Yeah, the Flag Girl, actually. You started.
That's been quite a few years ago, honey.
You look actually younger then too.
Oh boy.
and little did we know that we would end up married and have a little 3-year-old boy right now, Cashton. It's just life's a journey.
It is. Yep.
I think everybody that's a little older can attest that you just never know how your path is going to be traveled. But yeah, it's God's blessed us, and now, many years later, we're here at Driven. We've always stayed true to our roots, and we're passionate, love hunting, no flash and dash, no smoke and mirrors. It's just who we are, and I like to think we're the same people, on camera that we're off.
Yep.
A lot of people
Absolutely.
meet us and say, "Boy, you're bigger than in person than you are on camera." So I'll try to suck it in a little bit. But they say you're smaller, so how's that go?
Right, I like that. They say camera adds 15 pounds, honey.
Yeah, that's what I tell everybody. In my case, it adds maybe 30. But that's what happens when you get a little older and you're up against, her. So, but anyways, thinking back over the years, some of the highlights. And that's why we're doing this podcast, because we want to talk about some of those highlights, because there are so many. And you said it best just the other night that how fortunate, because you were going back through, it was just our anniversary the other day. By the way, happy anniversary.
Yeah, honey, happy anniversary.
I almost forgot.
And what'd we do for anniversary? We went to eat, stuffed ourselves with chips and cheese, and went to Walmart.
If that's one way to win a girl over, you just take her to Wally World, and I'm telling you, she
That's
is
right.
in the bag.
That's right. You had me hooked.
Right, yeah. It's probably
But honestly, you know, we think about it. We were looking back, like you said, at photos. It's amazing to go back that many years. This will be our 12th hunting season going into this year. And to think about the mountains we've climbed, the places that we've been. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh, it does. And I think those adventure series stuff, even though we're whitetail based, those adventure series trips that has taken us to the mountains from New Zealand up to Alaska into the Canadian Rockies, they've all been epic.
Absolutely.
And I'll never forget the first time you and I went early on when we were dating. We went to Alaska on my very first sheep hunt, and we're hunting Dall sheep. And
keep in mind, I had never been to the mountains. I grew up in Southern Illinois and did not take a ton of vacations with my family growing up. So Patrick is bringing this little Southern girl out to the mountains. I had no clue what I was in for.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were in for totally across the boards. And it was roughing it. It was a tough hunt. The weather was inclement. I remember actually, after about 6 or 7 days of climbing, we couldn't stand each other to sleep next to each other because we both stunk so bad.
Well, I don't know about you, but I didn't stink that bad.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you did.
I know you did.
But she's like, I gotta at least get some sort of shower, and there's just no way to go shower.
Well, we're talking ice cold streams, right? Like and we're ice cold.
We heated up a little water with some cold water, and you stood in the back of the tent out of the view of everybody else, and I poured it over the top of you, and it's like probably, like the size of a pop bottle amount of water, and we cleaned up.
But it felt like heaven.
Oh. And at the end of that hunt, I missed that ram on the very last day of the last hour of the hunt. Yep. And to walk out that mountain that day, I never thought I'd ever step back on a sheep mountain ever again to chase those critters because they're tough.
Don't you remember we were so exhausted that night? I mean, we hiked our butts off that day, and we were sweating so bad. And that was our first mountain hunt, so we really didn't exactly have the appropriate clothing and all of that for it. And we got back on the horses. We climbed all the way off that mountain that night and got back onto the horses to go back to Spike Camp. And we were both so exhausted. We were falling asleep on the horses and trying not to fall off. Yes. And we were freezing because we had sweated so much. I mean, it was a miserable time, but yet it's one of the most memorable and awesome times too, if that sounds,
do you remember like on that hunt when we got back, there was this old shack, and there was where you could get in out of the weather to like just eat, and then you go to your tent and sleep. But that old shack had a box of like hamburger helper. And it was dated in the 70s.
Yes.
Even the packaging looked totally different, and we were so hungry we ended up cooking it up, and it tasted totally different than hamburger helper.
We didn't care though. When you're in the mountains like that, living off of nothing, anything tastes good.
And we certainly didn't eat any sheep on that trip. So we actually just revisited that hunt just here producing this year's series, and we can talk about that hunt down the road here. But I mean, thinking of other hunts that really stood out, I remember, going to the Yukon on another amazing hunt when you first got to hunt the Alaskan moose. It was epic in itself because we saw lots of moose. We hunted with Joel Wilkinson up there at Cedar Lake, and Ruth and Terry, great people, and they've become friends ever since then.
Yeah, they're like family to us now. It's amazing how, in hunting camps you create those bonds and you meet those people, and you really essentially become family. I mean, we've been up there now how many times? I think this year will be our 8th or 9th trip up there. So
yeah, and the memories that we've made, and not all positive. People still remind me, like, why didn't Nicole pass that moose up in the river that time? It walked right in 20 yards.
Because my guide's telling me, no, don't
first
shoot.
Time, I'm like, it's a nice moose. It looked, especially the footage was epic. And then you ended up shooting a nice moose in the end with your TC, and we got a good show out of it. And we've been, back. I mean, there's the one time I went back without you one time because I knew if I was going to shoot one, I would have to leave you at home. Yeah, I took my cameraman and I shot, that big drop paddle. That was, an insane trip too. But one of the trips that other trips that we had to Caesar, and I still think it ranks as one of our most favorite hunts, was when we hunted mountain goats and mountain caribou. And just the scenery alone, and it was a horseback hunt, and we got to just scale some amazing mountains and chase those critters around and have fun. And like you said earlier, I mean, it's exhausting, but in the end, when you come back home, you put it all together and you lick your wounds and you think, oh, that was a lot of fun. That's what's hooked us about adventure hunting.
I think my favorite part is, you go and endure what you endure. Not many people will go out for 10 days on a mountain, no shower, you backpack, everything you have is on your back. This sounds really bad, but you wear the same pair of underwear for 10 days. You're not showering, you eat dehydrated food, but not a ton of people would do that, right? And you stand on that mountain and you honestly think, how many people have stood in this exact same spot? Not many. I bet you could count on maybe one hand in some of the places that we've been fortunate enough to travel to that people have actually been there themselves and been able to witness and experience God's creation like we have. I think that's my number one thing that keeps me going and keeps me coming back, is that and the memories and experiences that you have and that you're able to come back and share with our kids. And hopefully, this is what I always pray and hope for, is that entices them to follow their dreams. Not necessarily hunting. I mean, I grew up in Southern Illinois, grew up whitetail hunting, turkey hunting. I never even dreamed. I mean, I was going to be a school teacher. That's what I was going to do. And there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Till Mr. Patrick came in my life and he changed that route for me.
Swept her off her feet.
That's right. But I mean, honestly, it's amazing that was always my ambitions in life. And now instead of a classroom full of 17 to 20 students, I'm able to influence thousands of kids around the world. But, I think my number one thing why I do what I do is for these kids to follow their dreams and ambitions. Even if it's not in the hunting industry, it's across the boards, whatever they have dreams of doing in their life, they can do it. No matter what stands in their way, they can do it. If they have the will, there's a way. Yeah. And
hard work and dedication. It's always been the key to success for many people out there. And I think it's still the key to success for those kids and people in the future to become successful. Is setting your goals and working very hard to obtain them. And I always tell that when I go and speak to classrooms across the country, that's what I tell them. I say, if you want to be a professional golfer, you can honestly be a professional golfer. I mean, you might have to practice every day, all day, but if you stay dedicated, it can happen. And just like for us, I mean, there's just a handful of us making a living in the hunting industry. You probably have a better chance of doing it in the fishing industry because there's just more positions available. But I'd probably, starve really quick if I had to make my living in the fishing business. But, let's talk a little bit about, not to switch gears too much, but, most people, again, know us as whitetail fanatics because we live here in southeastern Minnesota. I've always lived here. You come from Southern Illinois. We've just been blessed to live around big whitetails.
Well, when we first started dating, look at the places we used to go, thinking back, the very, very, very first hunt that you and I ever did was in North Dakota for velvet whitetails. And I never hunted a velvet whitetail in my life before, but I mean, that hunt still rings true. I mean, like, what a fun hunt. That's the first time you ever ripped one in front of me in the tree stand, and I fell out of it because I was laughing so hard.
Yeah, I wanted to test your patience and see what you had in you. If you were going to stick around after I let some gas go, I figured it'd be. And you sent me into the drugstore for feminine products.
That's right.
I went reluctantly, and the women all teased me in there. But, I mean, I think I tested you, you tested me.
That's right. And look at this, honey. That's right.
I'm still going in and getting you those products. So
that's right. You're a good hubby.
Anyways.
But you know what? You're right. We were both blessed to live around big whitetails. And so really, when we first started hunting, that was awesome, right? I mean, like, just early days.
And it seemed like you always had the luck, too.
Right?
Yeah, we went to North Dakota. You shot a bigger deer. I don't even want to show people the deer I shot on that trip. But then we came home, and you never hunted in Minnesota. I mean, it was like the second day in the tree down at John Redmond's and from Nose bam, you shot a great big Minnesota whitetail buck.
It was like we were unstoppable. We were on fire.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
We're just rolling. And that year, we knocked down some really nice deer.
And you kept telling me, it's not that easy, Nicole. I promise you, it's not supposed to be this easy.
Well, that same year, I believe we went to Canada, and you shot one of your biggest whitetail yet to date. Not your biggest, but it was one of the biggest.
Yep.
It was like a 182 class typical. And you were sitting in an 8-foot ladder stand. And it was like I think it was one of our first days there.
It was, yeah.
And you talk about luck. I mean, I go one way with my cameraman, and I send actually my buddy that runs camera very little. His name was Doug Klender. He said, Doug, you go with Nicole and, just sit there and see what you can film. If you get something great, if you don't, no worries, right? Because basically we're just kind of getting started at that. So you come back that night and try to pull my leg and say, well, I shot this little one. And I'm thinking, what? Why'd you shoot a little one on the first day? And then we went there and blood trailed it, and I walked up to that true giant. I'm like...
I sometimes like to pull his leg when we're out in the field.
Yeah.
It's always fun, right? Surprise.
That was a monster. I couldn't believe it. I still can't... Well, I look at it every day in the office, so it's mounted up there. But anyways, it was a great year. And it really, again, helped Driven get to another level. Every year it seems like we've always done that and worked so hard at bringing, top end production, especially when it comes to building openers.
Yep.
You know how much effort we put into that. And I got to tell this one opener, building an opener story, because it's classic me, classic Nicole. We were producing the opener, and we had a problem trying to find some front end shots and some back end shots, because we had all these other great epic winter scene shots, but we just didn't have anything to start it or end the actual opener. So one night I was over at my editor's house late, and we're trying to devise a game plan, and I looked outside and it's like sub-zero, and a snowstorm was blowing in that night, and it was nasty and like really cold, bitterly cold. And Nicole is already well asleep because... Oh,
yeah, we're talking it's 1, 2 in the morning by this time.
Yeah, anybody who knows Nicole knows that she goes to bed at like 8 o'clock. It's worse than my great-grandmother. So she'd been sleeping for hours, and I don't require that much beauty sleep,
yeah,
unlike some other people. But anyways, in the middle of the night, my editor and I devised a game plan to like shoot the opener scene that night. And I go over and I wake up Nicole, which, it's like waking a grizzly bear up. She growls and bites and snaps at you, and eventually kind of comes to. And I said, how much do you love me? And she's like, not much, because you need to go to sleep now. I think she was figuring I was wanting something else. But I said, no, really. I said, we need to get up and go film. It's a perfect conditions. And she said, you're joking, right? And I'm like, nope. Look outside. It's big flakes. And she's like, it's sub-zero, Patrick. Go to sleep.
And these are your next words. We're driven, honey. Remember? Get out of bed.
I go, this might be the only chance we get to get this. So we get up and get dressed, and we, head out that night, and we filmed all night in the middle of the night. And we got an, unbelievable opener scene that is still one of my favorites.
Yep. And we won Best Opener that year.
Yeah. We've won Best Opener for many years, Golden Moose Awards. So we've been extremely blessed, but put a lot of effort into it.
Absolutely.
And not just us, all the guys that work for us too. So
you're right.
We got a heck of a team of people.
We do.
We've
been
very
very
lucky.
Blessed. Yes.
They don't get enough credit. We get
That's
all the
right.
credit.
The behind the scenes guys. So thank you guys.
There's the guys that are, I love running camera too, and that's been my MO, still is. But there's a lot of other guys that like running the camera, are good at it, and haul the camera gear up and down the mountains with us. So
that's right.
It's been
it takes a lot to do what we do, but it's fun.
What's been one of your most favorite hunts? If you had to pick out a couple.
Gosh, I don't know.
I already probably stole a couple from you.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think that they all kind of hold special place here and there. I'd say probably my most favorite, of course, all of our kids' hunts that we've done, but the hunt in Saskatchewan with my dad, filming him, that was pretty special just because that's how I was born and raised, hunting with my dad. You know, memories at a very, very young age, tromping through the woods with my dad. And then,
And you got to go film 'em.
unfortunately, you know, doing what we do, it's taken away from me getting to spend time outdoors and in the field with my dad like I used to be able to. So being able to take him up to Canada for his very first trip out of the United States, you know, for a hunt. So being able to take him up there and sit with him in the blind and film him shooting his.
Well, you shot
a
a big deer the very first day. So
I did, yep.
The first day he said he didn't have any way to film him. And we're thinking, well, if maybe this will work out. So you shot this giant 10-pointer with a bow. I remember that. And you were excited about that deer, but not as excited as you were to go sit with your dad. And, you know, it was just meant to be.
Absolutely.
And then you guys shot that. He shot that non-typical with the inside shooter points. And he was so ecstatic. I mean, I'm sure that probably ranks as one of his favorites of all times too. That was a fun hunt, and both you and I have taken our dads up there. We've taken the kids up there. Yes, going up to Grant Kuiper's at Buck Country or Buck Paradise, and then Brandon and Dean Kuiper's place up there at in Buck Country. You know, both of them are the same. They're all related, but we've had so many good hunts up there, and we continue to hunt up there every year.
It's a yearly thing for us, for
it's
sure.
Our staple
a couple
place.
times, a couple times a year. So I would definitely say that's probably one of my all-time favorites. But once again, all the mountain hunts and the different mountains we've climbed on, when you unzip your tent in the morning and you see the sun coming up and you're on top of the most, you know, hugest mountain that you could ever possibly think of, knowing that you hiked your butt all the way up there and waking up that next morning, that's pretty special too. So, but for sure the kids, right? I mean, like, that's why we live and breathe.
I mean, they've traveled abroad, you know, internationally with us everywhere. It's been so much fun to, you know, let them experience some of these, you know, epic hunts and adventures, not just for us. And, you know, speaking of, you know, epic adventure, there was one time that really stuck out that Nicole really got old Patrick. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm afraid of heights, and I hate being, you know, like, I'll get in a tree stand and I'm fine with that because I'm pretty used to that by now. But if I had to go up on top of a ridge and look down, or on top of a tall building, I can't stand it. And I certainly would never consider skydiving, right? Until I met Nicole. And we go to New Zealand and we're on this stag and tar hunt. And Nicole mentioned that early on in the hunt. She's like, you know, what'd be really cool is if we were to shoot out early, we could go skydiving. Wouldn't that be
these
fun?
guides had always talked about, they'd never been, and there at the place was like one of the top skydiving places in the world. So I'm like, we are here. We're in the
let's
perfect
do
place.
this. And I'm like, I'm thinking the whole time through the hunt, oh, please, Lord, let us not kill out, because I do not want to go skydiving. I mean, I was actually praying not to shoot something.
And I kept telling them, you don't have to go.
Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, listen, I'm going to make this hunt situation to where we don't have the time to go. And just as luck would have it, on the very last second of the second to last day, Nicole shoots this animal, and the first thing she says after it hits the ground, she's like, we are so going skydiving. We got one day to get it done. And I'm like, oh, good Lord. And my heart just sank because I knew that I was in a bad position. So we go to the skydiving place, and of course, you know, if we're going to go skydiving, she said, well, you can stay on the ground and just watch. I'm like, and I was going to do that because I wasn't going to listen to her the rest of her life rub it in on how fun it was and how you know, what an adventure. So I decided, heck with it.
Peer pressure.
Conquer my fears.
You caved.
I was going to conquer them. And so I put on the jumpsuit. We went through the training, and I was filming it all the way. And then at the last second, I realized I'd really messed up majorly, because I'd filmed them getting into the plane, and then I walked up the steps and realized that now I was the last one in, which means I'm the first one out. And I'm like, oh my God. And as we traversed to 12,000 feet. We got to 4,000. I'm like, I can't even see a car down there anymore. We can jump from here. And these guys like, oh no, we got to go to 12,000. And we got up to 12,000 feet. I could barely see the tops of the mountains. We were so high. And he's like, well, you go this high, you know, if we go any higher, you can't breathe. There's no oxygen. I'm like, oh, perfect. And he said, but this way you can free fall longer. I'm like, oh, wonderful. So when I hit the ground at 120 miles an hour, I can really make a grease spot. But anyways, he says, you know, just easy enough. He said, just slide out to the edge. He said, and whatever you do, don't look down. And I'm sure enough, as soon as I slide out the edge, what did I do? I looked down, and when I looked down, let me tell you.
You had no chance, though, to say anything, because
Oh, my
about
God.
that time, it was whoom, and
Yeah.
you were out.
Yeah, he said, count to three. I go, 1, 2, and like before I was even on 3, I was out, and then we were free falling for like a minute. And my guy that I went with, tandem, we had a jump tandem. He was cool. He did nice.
Well, they pair
and easy.
you with somebody more your size, right?
Yeah.
So
He
height,
was a
weight,
hunter.
all that stuff. Yeah. Well, I told my guy I was a hunter. Bad idea.
Yeah,
He didn't like hunters.
He spun Nicole like a top for a constant minute.
Oh my gosh, I
before
thought
the
I
shoot
was
went
going to
off.
vomit. It was bad. So my joke ended up coming back on me because I was so excited to go skydiving, and that is one thing I could say I'll never do again.
I got to the ground. I loved it.
I
And
was
she hated
so
it.
sick. Oh my gosh, I was so sick because my guy just had us spinning in circles. So
So you got
part
a
of
little
it. That's
payback.
right. It came back on me. It was
But-
fun though.
Yeah, and now that we got cash, and she said I would never do that, and I'm like,
Isn't it funny?
why?
Yeah.
Well, I got a son now. I'm like, I already had 4 kids when I jumped, so.
And I didn't force you, but you know what? We did it, honey. We did it together.
Then there was a time in Florida where he took me on one of the deadliest roller coasters in the world, and she said, "This is nothing."
Him and my father-in-law, they had never been on big roller coasters. I sat in the middle and I made them sit in the very front row. I've never heard 2 adult men scream like little girls in my life. I almost peed myself.
I, honest to God, think I pooped my pants that day. Because it's one of those roller coasters that you sit in and the shoulder thing comes over you and your feet.
I
your
never thought
legs
that
and your
noise could
feet-
ever come out of
Your feet are
could ever
kind of
come out
dangling.
you.
Yeah, they took us up this thing so high, and then an inverted hung us like over the entire city of Tampa. I could honestly see different countries.
He's
from
like,
where
I
was.
can see Minnesota out there.
Right. And then we, went on this free fall all the way straight into the ground. And then she's like, that's nothing. That's so much fun. And then we get home and like about a year later, I was watching TV. Just
Yeah, we're
laying
watching a show on like Discovery or something. And
10
it came
deadliest
up.
roller coasters in the world, and that's on there. I'm like, ha. So, yeah, she's got me in a whole lot of trouble over the years.
And you still kept me around, honey. Look at that. The memories we've made.
You're just lucky
We've
you're good looking.
survived them all, and now you can tell everyone about them, right?
It comes with a cost. That's what I always say. Man, you're so lucky you married her. I'm like, huh. Now some of it's coming out.
Why does-
People will be like, starting to feel sorry for me for once.
Right.
Not you.
That's right. I have an adventurous side. That's okay.
You did talk just a little bit about raising kids in the outdoors and stuff. And, one of the things that I know that we've held very dear to our hearts is over the years, we do all these consumer shows and stuff where we go to deer classics and so on and so forth. And we get to meet these kids. And, a lot of them we've gotten to know over the years through just being around them year after year. It kind of dates us a little bit, but we've seen them grow up and stuff. And you never did see that when I first started back in the day. You never did see any girls going to deer shows because if they were kicking and screaming. They didn't want to be there. But now it's cool to be a girl and go to the deer show with your parents, even by yourself or with friends. And I'd like to attribute it not just to you, but to all the females that are in the hunting space.
Absolutely. Or just in the outdoor space, right?
Yeah,
I
they're
mean,
not
there's a lot
necessarily
of-
TV celebrities.
Exactly.
I mean, there's women that are in, the digital world too, but they're all mentors for young girls to look up to.
Well, I mean, even when I started, there weren't much for women. I mean, I was born and raised with two older brothers, and I guess I just didn't really think anything of it. My dad always just took me out to the woods when he went.
I didn't know hardly any. I did know there was a lady named Judy Kovar, I believe, that was just a bow hunter, and Brenda Valentine back in the day. But there was not many female hunters.
Yep.
Manufacturers never made stuff.
No, I mean, I remember growing up, like I said, climbing up the tree stand when I was old enough to walk, climbing in the tree stand with my brother's old hand-me-down camouflage pants that the waist was huge on. The crotch, hung all the way almost down to my kneecaps. I have to worry about it getting caught on the steps, as I climbed up, and just everything. I mean, it's amazing how everything has evolved and changed. But you're right. I think it's attributed to all of the females that are actually getting out there now. And now with social media and television and stuff, of course, there have always been, I'm sure, lots of outdoor ladies out there, but, it was never really shown or portrayed on all of it. So,
well, and the manufacturers have really cued
absolutely
on the female movement. Like you said, I mean, you're wearing hand-me-downs, and now everything's tailored. The clothing is tailored to the female. Think about the bows. What bow do you shoot for? I mean, what's your choice for bows right now?
Matthews Avail is what I'm shooting right now. And they continuously keep upgrading and doing something better. Just when you think, that you're shooting the best of the best, they come in and change it up and do something even better. But Matthews has done an awesome job at creating some of my most favorite bows that I've ever shot. And like I said, I've been bow hunting or shooting a bow since I was really young. And, now that Matthews has really geared those bows towards shorter framed hunters, people with lighter draw, weight, all that stuff. It's amazing how when Pat and I stand there and shoot side by side, it's amazing the effectiveness.
Well, yeah, Matthews has really done an amazing job, not just on their Matthews line, but their Mission line and also the Genesis line. And talk about if people only knew what Matthews has put back into the sport of archery, into the Archeries in the Schools program and so on and so forth, just by building the Genesis bows, it's really put a lot of archers out there. And
wouldn't it have been awesome for you growing up to be able to have archery in school?
It would have been the only A I would have got.
Honestly, it's amazing that I'm thinking, boy, I grew up at the wrong time period because, we didn't have any of that whenever I was in school.
Yeah, but the point I was trying to make is just the amount of females that we see is our growth in our sport, and we're super excited about that. And I wanted to thank you and, of course, all the other females for helping that and kind of inspiring, girls of all ages to get started in hunting. But
I think that's the number one question we do get, too, at trade shows and stuff is, I have a daughter, or I have a granddaughter, a niece, or, someone that I'm trying to get involved into hunting or trying to just get them outdoors and get them, involved. And I always say just making their experiences positive anytime you take them out to the outdoors. Granted, I get it. Things happen, and you're not always going to have the perfect bluebird day and you're not always going to see tons of deer or turkeys, whatever you're out there hunting for. But I always say try to make it as positive as possible because, nowadays there's so many other distractions and things that kids can get involved in that if you take them out on a cold, nasty, rainy day and they're just absolutely miserable, you're not going to see much, and they're cold, they're wet. Yeah, they're going to associate hunting with that one specific day, so being able to start them off on the right foot, making sure they have the right equipment, the right clothing, lots of snacks, that's a must.
And of course they're hooked on their electronics, so a lot of times they bring their electronics. But if for us, hunting now, we do a lot more hunting with the kids out of our permanent
blinds,
Muddy.
Yep.
Muddy makes a permanent blind. It's called the Bull, and on a penthouse. And
our kids bring their homework. They bring coloring books.
Yeah,
you name it.
It helps so much to make that, again, a comfortable, positive experience. They don't freeze to death. We can bring a heater in there, and it just becomes a panoramic view, a nice view of nature. And I don't care if you're just sitting in the truck watching deer on a summer night and going for a deer cruise. Yeah, it's getting that family time together.
Absolutely.
That creates those bonds. You and I know, that's how we were raised. But again,
it's hard to break those kids and those people that weren't, able to have those prior adventures and experiences together with their family. I mean, that's what both Pat and I attribute our love for the outdoors for. We're our fathers. So that's pretty cool that we're able to do that.
Well, let's do something a little fun. Let's tell the viewer something that they don't know about each other.
Something they don't know about you? Oh, this is going to be good.
And something they don't know about you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you go first, and then I'll go second.
I know what you're going to say. I know exactly what she's going to say.
Yeah. How in-depth can I get with this?
Yeah. How much time do I got? I've already told them that you go to sleep,
I'm
earlier
grandma.
than my grandma.
I am.
But you go first.
Nope. Go ahead. Nice try. Okay, you go first.
Nicole has a little issue with picking her fingernails.
I do.
So we spend a lot of money
fake fingernails
at going to the nail salon.
We do.
And I always say she's high maintenance because of that, even though she doesn't do much else. That's just one of my. And if we don't get it done, then I have to listen as we sit in the tree stand to her picking at her nails. And ironically, though, her dad and her brothers both do it. So it is a bit of hereditary, but I don't know if people know that about you. It's not really a quirk so much, but it does, after a while, wear on you if you're trying to be quiet and sit in the stand. All you hear this little tick, tick, tick.
Okay, and Patrick.
There's really nothing wrong with Patrick.
His quirk, I would say, the biggest one is he has to have white sheets. He has to have white towels.
That's it.
He wears whitey tighties, white socks, and they all have to be bleached and all have to have fabric softener and dried. Everything has to be white. I can buy the exact same set of sheets, exact same thread count, brand, everything, except they're just two different colors. And by golly, he moans and groans and complains and thinks it's the worst thing ever, until I show him the package and say, it's the exact same thing. He's like, I don't care. I like my white. So that's his little quirk. He has to have white everything.
I want to get a good night's sleep. And I do put...
I don't know how white sheets help you with that.
I do put lotion on my feet at night. Yes, I'll admit to that.
That's a second quirk. But even in the mountains, he carries...
I have to have cold feet.
And it's a container, a special kind of lotion that he has to have. And it's ridiculously expensive. And he just slathers it on. And in the wintertime, when there's snow on the ground.
And it is a little bit embarrassing when people come over to our house or they like look in our tent and see a bottle of lotion there. They're like,
yeah, they immediately.
They're like,
Or
I'm like,
you have like.
It's not what you think it's for.
Yeah, he's got like 5 bottles of lotion sitting on his nightstand. I'm like, that's really nice, honey. What are people going to think? But in the wintertime, you go out and stand in the snow. Because he can't stand hot feet. Like, he hates hot feet. So he'll go stand in the snow. Summertime, he goes and runs his feet underneath ice cold water in the bathtub before you come to bed.
Listen, I have never gotten cold feet over you, okay? Nicole, it's time to say something about Nicole, since we're ripping on each other. Nicole, there's a couple things about sleeping. If you sleep next to her, you can sleep next to the freeway because this woman snores like a grizzly bear. And I've not slept next to many grizzly bears, but she is a snorer. A couple times I had to check and make sure I wasn't lying next to a 500-pound adult man.
I can't help it. I like my sleep, I guess.
And she cranks. So I think we're going to have to take her in for them sleep apnea tests and run her through the mill on that. But yeah, that's some fun little facts about us. Of course, we have lots more, but we won't tell them right now. We'll save them for another, episode. But anyways, I suppose we better wrap it up because it's getting long, but we've had a lot of fun talking about our first podcast. And, again, just want to deliver something that's totally the inside track about us.
And this is just the beginning. There is tons more to come. We're just kind of, hitting on some different small stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's been fun. Thanks for having me.
Well, we'll keep it up, right?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. We're signing out for this edition of Driven Hunter, but stay tuned. We'll be back with a lot more.